Hi everyone, Carter Krishnaiyer here for Beyond the 90. I want to elaborate a little more on that podcast Javi Martinez and I did the other day. Very controversial topic. I'm not backing away from anything I said in that podcast. I just want to kind of elaborate a little further in maybe a more organized fashion. My thoughts. So first off, I do not like other domestic leagues having games in the United States or in Australia or in India or Iceland or wherever, because it undermines the local domestic game. And this match is coming to, if you don't know the geography of South Florida, it's coming to Hard Rock Stadium, which is about halfway between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. In fact, back in the days when the Florida Marlins played at that stadium, I remember Harry Carey, the famous announcer for the Cubs, saying, "We're here in Miami." His son, Skip Carey, famous announcer for the Braves, saying, "We're here in Fort Lauderdale." So it's halfway between the two cities, both of which have pro soccer clubs. Fort Lauderdale United on both the men's and women's side in Fort Lauderdale, and then Miami FC and Inter Miami in Miami. Inter Miami played in Fort Lauderdale, obviously, until it's still playing as we record this in Fort Lauderdale, but they would have moved to Miami by the time this La Liga match is played. So you have a foreign league coming into a market, a mature market where there are existing professional clubs playing a competitive league match. That hurts local football. That hurts local soccer. That undermines. There are people who will save their money instead of buying tickets to go see Fort Lauderdale United or Miami FC or Inter Miami. Will say, I'm going to save my money and pay whatever the exorbitant fee is for this relocated Villarreal home match, which will effectively be a Barcelona home match. So that's point one. Point two is it undermines competitive integrity. This gives effectively an additional home match to Barcelona. And for Villarreal, it forfeits the advantages of their community support, their supporters, and not having to travel. So this is something that also affects teams near the top of the table in Spain, because Real Madrid and Atleti can rightly say Barcelona is getting an additional home game. It's going to alienate. The third point I would make is it's going to alienate fans in Spain, domestic fans. We talked about this on the podcast with Javi. Spain, very unique country, motif of different ethnicities, whether they're Catalan or Andalusian or Basque or whatever else, Galician or Castilian. And I think that's part of the uniqueness of La Liga, or those cultural stories and those ethnic stories. And no one who's a Vigo supporter or a Real Betis supporter benefits from their club. Villarreal's the first club, but then maybe it'll be them next, being sold to American fans, basically, losing their edge and their community feel, so that they can host a game in Miami, or maybe the next game will be in San Francisco. I don't know, wherever, New York. It undermines the identity of the league. Four, it turns the league into a traveling circus. That's very, very self-explanatory. We discussed that at length. I think Javi was even better on that than I was, in terms of talking also about Javier Tebas, his hypocrisy on this issue. Five, it's going to damage the pyramid below. I think this is, again, very self-explanatory. We got into this in the podcast. Spain's football ecosystem depends on community clubs and a healthy pyramid. And once you're taking match day revenue away from accounts. So here at Villarreal, all the merchants around the ground are going to lose the match day revenue of one of their two biggest matches, home matches of the year. That's all going to shift to South Florida. How fair is that? And then once you start taking those little bricks out of the building, it's going to collapse. Number six, it sets a horrible precedent, which I think we talked about. So now Serie A is talking about putting a game in Sydney or Perth or someplace in Australia. Very logical. There's a huge Italian community in Australia. I have heard rumors that Liga would like to have a game in Montreal. I don't know. I can't verify that yet, but that would be, I think, very damaging as well. In fact, Serie A might want to have a game in Toronto then. given the Italian roots there. So you're setting this precedent. I'm pretty sure the Bundesliga nor the Premier League will be able to do this because of the domestic fan basis, but never say never. I'm sure there are officials in the Bundesliga offices in Cologne who are saying, you know what, it would be great. Wouldn't it be great if we could take Borussia Dortmund and have somebody forfeit a home match and have a Borussia Dortmund home match in let's think of a city with a lot of German heritage, Chicago or Cincinnati or Milwaukee, someplace like that in the U.S. You could just imagine they're thinking about this. And in terms of the Premier League, there's so many American owners. That's the thing also in Serie A. There's so many American and Canadian owners, a few Canadian owners in Serie A as well, that they're probably thinking about this. You know, John Henry would love to have a Liverpool match. Now, they won't give up a match at Anfield, but, you know, lo and behold, someone who needs revenue, like a Luton Town, is promoted again. Hey, let's move this match to Boston. That could be in the cards. So the precedent is very, very dangerous. And then the seventh point I would make is that I understand part of where this comes from for La Liga. There is a dominance of the Premier League in terms of just the global marketing reach. Why did that happen? Partly that happened when La Liga was, from my Spanish point, the better league from a technical standpoint, from a quality standpoint, most of the last 20 years. There are times the Premier League has been better, but most of the time it's been La Liga that's been the better league. Why was the Premier League more successful? One, they lead into the culture of English football. They have more big clubs in England. That's a reality. The English language helps. But it was just, they were more savvy in how they marketed the sport compared to the Spanish. Why did Serie A, which was the best league in the world in 2000, become a basket case? It's just a joke in terms of how they've been marketed abroad. I hate to lean into stereotypes here, but Italians in general are not very good at business and are not very good at marketing. They're great at other things. They're great at football. Well, not great at football anymore, but they weren't great at football at the time. Certainly greater than England was. But they've made marketing mistakes. Why has Germany not been able to take advantage? Well, because I think, and also Serie A, the mindset in Italy is very insular. Now that's beginning to change because, as I said, half the league is owned now by American or Canadian owners, North American owners. So that begins to change these things. And you have guys like De Laurentiis, who I think have always been very open-minded, of some of the Italian owners like De Laurentiis at Napoli, very open-minded. Also owns Bari currently, that's a subject for another day. He won't own Bari much longer, but he does own Bari at the moment. So what was the, Germany. Germany, it's because of 50+1. And I think they've kept the game very pure in Germany. They've kept the game as pure as they could, but that has hurt them in terms of international marketing. And they've scrambled to try and catch up. So basically, and Liga also. So these four other big leagues in Europe have been chasing the Premier League, right? They've been chasing the Premier League, who have told much more organic stories, whose television production was better, although I don't think it was necessarily better than the Bundesliga, but certainly better than Serie A or La Liga, whose ability to kind of lead into the fact that they have so many big clubs in England that you can tell great, historic, triumphant stories about Nottingham Forest or Leeds United or the Sheffield clubs, or just about every club every big club in the West Midlands, Birmingham City, Aston Villa, West Brom, Wolves. You tell stories about them that you really can't tell that easily about the next tier of Italian and Spanish clubs. You can about many German clubs. Germany has more big clubs, I would say, than Italy and Spain, but they don't have. They have the structure that kind of hems them in. So I understand why La Liga is doing this. I sympathize with why they feel they need to do this. But the precedent it sets and the problems it's going to cause down the road, I think, for the entire sport of football and for domestic leagues, for clubs, for club structures, for club pyramids, for community football, it's just not worth it. I think once you remove one stone from that brick building, or one brick from that brick building, and then some people say, oh, well, then we got away with it. We can pull a couple others out. The foundation of the building collapses, and then eventually the building itself collapses. And I think that's what we're headed to because of this.